I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name's Dave, and I'm one of the owners and operators of Homeschool Tracker. And along with my wife, Amy, who you might know from our customer support emails, we operate Homeschool Tracker and try to just do the best that we can to serve you, our customers. And so we just want to say thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We know there's a lot of different things you could be doing on a Monday night. And so we just really appreciate you jumping on here to learn a little bit more about how to use Homeschool Tracker and how to make the most of it for you and your homeschool. A little bit of background, our mission here is really just to create not only great products that will help you be more successful in your homeschool, but also to give you the tools and the resources to know how to use those products within your homeschool. So that's exactly what things like tonight are all about. They're really here to just educate you and just help you along the way, along this homeschooling journey. We know there's a lot of different things to learn about or to study up on, and Homeschool Tracker, certainly, if you've been using it at all so far, you know that it's a really deep and feature rich program. And so we really want to just provide that training and support for you so that you can just jump right in and get to work on it. So let's talk a little bit about the agenda for tonight. We're going to start off by discussing a little bit about where to find help, within Homeschool Tracker. We'll do a bit of a interface tour to talk about the different parts of Homeschool Tracker. We'll discuss the difference between subjects and courses. Then we'll discuss assignments, which are really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. We'll talk about lesson plans, which are a really popular feature. We'll discuss reports, specifically the daily task list. And then we'll discuss workflows. And what I mean by workflows, really just the different ways that you can use Homeschool Tracker on a day to day basis. And we'll actually probably touch on those throughout the presentation tonight, but we'll definitely circle back to show you different ways that you can use the program. And then we'll end with a time of Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask those through the Q&A button there on your viewer, and we'll be able to address those all at the end. And there were a few questions that came in ahead of time that we'll certainly discuss as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. Oh, and one other bit of housekeeping. I am recording this session, and at the conclusion, when the recording is ready, I will email everybody that registered for the event, and you'll get a link to that recording as well as a survey to just find out a little bit more about what you thought of the presentation. If there's any other ways that we can help you. So let's talk a little bit about where to find help for Homeschool Tracker. So one great place is our getting started tutorial videos, as well as webinars just like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up help.homeschooltracker.com. And right here at the top are our getting started video tutorials. So there's 11 parts. Each one's just a few minutes long. Altogether, you could actually watch the whole thing in about 30 minutes. And it's a great resource because you can just jump right into the specific area that you have questions about. So this training session that we're on right now will cover actually a lot of what's in here. But if you ever want to go back and study up on something in particular, you can certainly just jump right to it. Additionally, the training sessions like this one are available for replay if you go to homeschooltracker.com, and under the support tab, the training center link, we have all the upcoming training sessions that are happening, as well as links to recordings of past training events, including um, getting started training sessions like this one, as well as one that we did recently specifically on lesson planning. So that's definitely, I'd highly recommend after watching or experiencing this session, if you want to learn more about lesson planning specifically, definitely check out the replay of that lesson planning session, I think it was really helpful for a lot of folks that were on that one. In addition, we do have extensive help documentation. So again, over here at help.homeschooltracker.com, this is a really comprehensive help guide, and it's organized much like an index or a reference guide. So one of the things that I like to recommend to users is to, whenever you're on a specific part or page of Homeschool Tracker, take a look at this help link up here on the top right corner. So, for example, if I'm in the calendar view and I have any questions about the calendar view, I can certainly just click right there on that help link, and it'll take me right to the corresponding page of the help documentation. So, this page here has anything and everything I've ever always wanted to know about the agenda calendar view, and it's all right here with links to additional pages when applicable. So that's a really fast way to quickly get help on any page that you might be on within Homeschool Tracker. Additionally, this help guide is searchable. So if you just type in your search here, it'll take you quickly to the item that you might have questions about. So this is definitely a great resource if you're ever looking for additional information about a particular feature or a particular page within Homeschool Tracker. And then lastly, email. We are more than happy to answer any and all of your email questions. Like I said before, along with my wife, Amy, you may actually know her from our customer support emails. She's monitoring that email box all the time and responds to all of your questions. So feel free to email us at support@homeschooltracker.com. And we respond to each and every email typically within 1 to 2 business days. And if you've ever emailed us, you probably got a response actually faster than that. So if you ever don't get a response from us, there's always a chance that maybe the email didn't go through or it ended up in a spam folder or something like that. So if it's been 2 days and you haven't heard from us, it's likely that we just didn't get it for some reason. So feel free to email us again because we absolutely do respond to each and every email that we receive. Okay, so let's jump into the interface of Homeschool Tracker. We'll do a quick demo of the different areas within the program. So I'm just going to close some of these windows here, jump back over here. Okay, so when you first log into Homeschool Tracker, you have the main menu, and the menu is broken up into a few different sections. So you have schedules and planning, students, reports, manage lists, and your account. So let's start over here in the schedules and planning section of the menu. This is where you'll find things like the agenda, which is essentially your to-do list for a student on a particular day. And you can view that in both calendar view or list view. This is also where you'll find your lesson plans, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And it's also where the shared lesson plan library is. Below that is the students section. And this is where you'll find anything related to your students. So the student list, which allows you to add or edit students in your homeschool. You can set their grade levels. This is where you'll see the grading overview, which calculates all of their grades together. This is also where the lesson plans and presets page is, which we'll talk about a little bit later, as well as the transcript supplemental, which is an area where you can add additional information that will be added to a transcript if you were to generate one. In the middle section here, this is the reports section. And the reports are um, PDF reports that you can save, print, or email. And there's a number of different reports. So everything from attendance reports to the daily task list, which we'll talk about later, to report cards, to transcripts, they're all right here. And then this section over here, the manage list section, I like to refer to this as kind of a maintenance area of the program. So it's definitely an area that you'll want to get familiar with because it's where a lot of the setup happens within the program. But it's definitely more of a place where you'll add things or edit things once or twice, but you're not necessarily going to be in there all the time. And so this will make more sense when we get into it, but essentially, you have different lists of activities or chore names. This is where your courses are, your grading scales, your library, subjects, that sort of thing. And so all of these different lists essentially can be referenced by assignments that exist in your agenda. And we'll show you how to do that. But this is definitely the way to think about it is definitely more of a maintenance area of the program. And then finally, the Your Account section. And this is where you'll find things like the program options, your school profile, where you can change the name of your school or the contact information, as well as the subscription and users page, which is where you can change your password, your email address, or update your billing plan or information, as well as create student and teacher accounts. That's all within the subscription and users page. Okay, so that's just a really brief overview of the interface. Let's jump in and start talking about subjects and courses. So This is a really important area of distinction between how we classify subjects and courses, and so it's important to understand the difference because it's really again one of those kind of maintenance things, and it's an area that you'll set up initially, and you want to make sure you have a good system within your homeschool of how you're organizing both subjects and courses. So excuse me, subjects are broad areas of study, things like math, language arts, history, or science. And then courses are the specific areas of study in your homeschool that might fall under a specific subject. So, for example, Algebra 2 would be the name of a course that would fall under the subject of math. And Composition 1 might be the name of a course that falls under the subject of language arts. Or Physical Science 1 would fall under the subject of science. You could also have things like freshman English could be a name of a course that would fall under the subject of language arts. So as you can see, courses are the specific areas of study or the specific class or course, if you will, and the subject is really just that broad area. And so within a typical account, you might have anywhere from say 4 to 8, maybe 10 different subjects, but you might have literally hundreds of courses. And so, organizing your homeschool that way within Homeschool Tracker certainly will be helpful down the line when you're creating reports like transcripts and report cards. If you're finding that you're creating a lot of subjects, you might want to back up and try to think about how you're organizing your homeschool because at least within Homeschool Tracker, because the way that we organize things typically is with subjects being very broad and then courses being much more specific. So let's take a look at what that looks like within Homeschool Tracker. So from the Manage Lists section of the menu, I'm going to jump right into the subjects screen. And so right off the bat, you'll see that I have 4 subjects: history, language arts, math, and science. And so these are really broad areas, obviously, of study. And you can see right here, there's just not really much to do in the subjects list because, like I said, it's really just a container for other courses, or for courses, I should say. So for example, if I open up history, you'll see that I can change the name of it. I can set it to core or elective. I see which courses I have that actually fall under history. So right now I have Ancient History 1, which is a course, and I can make it active or inactive right here. If I wanted to add a new subject, I just click on Action and then Add. And I could give the subject a name and click Save. So really basic here, not a lot to do on the subjects list. If I jump over to the courses, though, you'll see instantly that there's a lot more information here when it comes to courses. So for example, Ancient History 1, here's the name of it, and the subject that it belongs to is history. And I can assign it credit units. I can determine how those credit units are calculated. I can assign it a different grading scale, determine if it's weighted grading or not, add different notes or course descriptions to it. So if I actually open that up, you can see all of those options right here. So definitely a lot more information that you can add to a course right here within the edit course screen. So if I wanted to add a new course, I would simply click on Action, Add. And let's go ahead and add a new course. I'm going to call this one Reading 1. And for subject, let's see, this would be probably under the subject of language arts. So I can just start typing language. And you'll notice that as I'm typing language arts, this pops up. And I'm going to stop right here to explain what this is because this is what we call a smart entry field. And you'll see these throughout the application. And basically what they're doing is as I'm typing, this field is searching the subject list, that list that we just left. It's searching that subject list for any items that match what I'm typing. So as I'm typing language arts, it finds language arts and pops it up so that I can just select it right away and kind of make sure that I've selected the right one. In addition, if I don't know the name of the subject or the item in the list that I'm adding right now, I can just hit the space bar and it'll load up all of the items on that particular list. And then I can just select language arts right there. So just a really handy way to quickly enter in data and to make sure that you are selecting the right item. Because for example, if I go ahead and type in language arts, but I accidentally add an extra S, what it's going to do is it actually can create things on the fly as well. So if I saved this, it would actually create a new subject called language arts with an extra S at the end. So I always recommend that as you're typing, or if you just hit the space bar to see all the items, that you just click on the item that you want, and that way you know that it's selecting the right one. Okay, so all of the other fields on here are more or less optional, and we won't necessarily get into them on this particular training session, but certainly, leverage that help link that I showed you earlier, or feel free to email us if you have any questions about grading scales or credit units, that sort of thing. So I'll go ahead and click save, and it says added one new item, click refresh to view. So I'll just click that. And now we can see that reading one is down here and it's part of the language arts subject. So there we go. We've added a new course. And that's really the difference between a course and a subject. So now let's jump back over here and take a look at this. So things to watch out for when it comes to courses and subjects. I would recommend not using the exact same name for both a subject and a course. Um, for a couple of reasons. One is, subjects, like we said, are really broad areas of study, and courses are much more specific. So you wouldn't necessarily want a course called language arts and a subject called language arts. It would be pretty confusing, and it wouldn't necessarily describe what exactly it is you're doing. So you would want that course to be more specific. It could be freshman language arts, it could be reading one, like we just did, and the subject should be a different name. And then the slash between the name of the subject and the course represents the break between subject and course. So I'll show you what that looks like, just because it'll make a little bit more sense if you see it. I'm just going to jump over to the calendar view and quickly add a new assignment. And when you're adding a new assignment, and we'll go over this here in just a minute, but when you're choosing a subject and a course, again, this is a smart entry field, so I'll just hit the space bar. You'll see that, for example, here I have history slash ancient history one. So this is the subject history slash and the course ancient history one. So if I were to select that, then I'm selecting the course ancient history one. If I were to just select history, then I'm really just selecting the subject history. So it's important to know that that slash means that you're selecting the course within that subject, and that's what the break is there. So you'll see I have language arts, which is the subject by itself, but I also have language arts slash grammar, which is the course grammar within the subject language arts. Okay, so that's the difference between subjects and courses. So it's important to know what those are. Okay, so let's talk about assignments. Um, Assignments are the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. So you can think of an assignment as a piece of, or an assignment, really, a task that would likely be tracked over time. So that means that it would likely be marked complete by either a student or a teacher, and it might be graded. But it's something that we assign our students, and it's not necessarily like a chore or an appointment. It's much more specific to that, and it's the things that we want them to actually complete and that we're going to track over time. So let's look at that a little bit deeper here in terms of what assignments are, where they come from, and then what you can do with them. So right here in the middle, assignments, really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. And where they can come from, well, they could be created individually or in a series, and I'll show you how to do that. Or they can come from a lesson plan and go through the scheduler tool to actually become assignments on your agenda. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Now, the cool thing about assignments is that that's where all of that information is contained. Information like the student, the subject course, the date, the time, the actual assignment itself, whether it be like page 5, questions 1 through 4, as well as the grade. All of that information is contained within the assignment. So when you mark an assignment complete or you grade it, a lot of different things can happen. So from assignments, you can generate things like report cards and transcripts. If you have auto attendance enabled, you can generate attendance records through assignments. You can create the daily task list, which is essentially a to-do list for your students. And a number of different other reports can all be created from assignments that can be generated to show you things like what resources were used in a specific course, or how much time was spent on a specific subject or course. So that's why we say that assignments are really the heart of all your record keeping, because that's where all of that information is contained within your homeschool. So we actually just saw this a minute ago when we were looking at subjects and courses, but this is the add assignment entry form that you'll see when if you're creating an assignment. And so each assignment requires a student, a subject course, and a date. Those are the only required fields. But obviously, you'll see all these other fields like activity or resource or PLC, time spent, etc. Those are optional, but are likely going to be used because the more information you put into an assignment, the more essentially you can get out of it later through your reports. So, one of the things about assignments is that you can mark them complete by a teacher, and you'll see that right here, this teacher complete box here. So, when that's marked complete, a lot of different things happen. So attendance is recorded if you have auto attendance enabled. Grades can be generated if you're grading. Time spent is calculated. And from all of that information, all of these different reports can then be generated. So let's take a demo or take a look at a demo of assignments. And what we'll do is we'll create single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to them and we'll mark them complete. And we'll do this both from the calendar view as well as the list view of the agenda. So I'm going to jump back over here and we'll start here in the calendar view. So this was from the main menu in the schedules and planning section. And we are going to the agenda calendar view. And so the calendar view is just what it sounds like. It's a view of your agenda in a calendar format. I'm just going to skip ahead to today, November 30th. And from here, you could simply click on add and choose assignment single. So here's that familiar assignment entry form. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and select a student. In this case, I'll choose my daughter Campbell. And then I can choose a subject course. So again, this is one of those smart entry fields. So I'll hit the space bar. And let's just choose history/ancient history 1. So we're choosing the course ancient history 1. And I can give it an activity. And again, this is another smart entry field. So if I hit the space bar, I can see all the activities that I've entered into my activity list. So this is a lesson and resource. Again, this is another smart entry field. And so if I hit the space bar, it's going to pull in all of the library items that I've designated as a resource. So I'm just going to go ahead and just pick one of these. And then PLC, and you'll see this throughout Homeschool Tracker. PLC stands for Page Lesson Chapter. It's really just an abbreviation where you can put in things like, chapter 6. Okay, and then I'll give it a date. So let's just give it today's date. I could choose a start and end time if I like. So I'll say from 8 to 10 a.m. And I can tell the program how many points possible are in this assignment. So let's say there's 10 points possible, and she hasn't earned any yet. And then I'll go ahead and hit save. So there it is. There's her assignment right there from 8 to 10 a.m. On Monday the 30th. And if I were to click on it once, I'll see a quick preview of it. It gives me, more information, which lesson, which chapter, that sort of thing. And if I click on more, I can go ahead and go back to that edit screen and make any changes I like. So let's imagine that Monday came and went and Campbell did this assignment. So what we want to do is we want to go back in and we want to grade it. So let's go ahead and open it right up. And there's a quick way to do this where you can essentially just mark it complete by clicking on this teacher check mark right here. I'm actually going to go ahead and click on more just so you can see it a little bit better here. But let's say I want to, give this a grade. So it's worth 10. Let's say she got 9 points out of 10. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on teacher complete. You'll notice when I did that, it calculated this grade of 90% because I'm marking it teacher complete. And if I go ahead and click on save, there we go. You'll notice that this changed color to be a little bit dimmer or darker to show that it's been marked complete. And then you'll also notice that this attendance record up here that says, Campbell present was created. And that's because I have a feature called auto attendance turned on, which basically says that if there was an assignment on a particular day that was marked complete, then it's basically assuming that the student was present that day. And so it goes ahead and creates an attendance record for that student for that day. And you can turn that on and off in the program options if you like. So that's it. That's how you would create a single assignment, how you grade it and mark it complete. Now, Just to talk briefly about workflows, there's a lot of folks that go ahead and they just do this every day. Every morning or the night before, perhaps. You can just create single assignments for your day. Then at the end of the day, or whenever you like, you can go back in and just grade them, mark them complete, and move on to your next day. And that's a perfectly acceptable workflow. And essentially, that's all you would necessarily need to do within Homeschool Tracker. Another strategy that a lot of folks like to do is they like to go in after the fact and create assignments for the work that they had already completed. So let's say you're not necessarily much of a planner, or you just like to see where the day takes you. You could go in every night, create single assignments for all the work that you did do that day, and mark them complete and give them a grade and move on and go about your homeschool that way. And then Homeschool Tracker really becomes more of a record keeping tool and less of a planning tool, which is great if, say, you are more of an unschooler that isn't necessarily following a strict curriculum or something like that. You just want this to essentially be a log of all the work that you did do, so that at the end of the year, at the end of the month, you could generate those same reports. And that's a perfectly acceptable way to use Homeschool Tracker. And that's really the beauty, I think, of the program, is that there's so many different ways that you can use this, that it's really up to you and what works best for you in your homeschool. So as we go, I'll continue to share some of those different ideas with you of how you might use these tools in your homeschool. So that's how you would create single assignments in the calendar view. Let's go ahead and try creating multiple assignments. I'll just choose add, and I'll choose assignment multiple. And so this is the multiple assignments wizard, if you will. And it's broken up into 3 different tabs, as you can see here. So students and details, day and date, and page lesson chapter. And as you kind of go through this wizard, you'll move from tab to tab. So here on the students and details tab, I can choose if I want these assignments to be created for one or more students, which is nice. So I can create this for both of these students if I like. I'll go ahead and add similar details here. So again, we'll do ancient history 1, and let's say this is a lesson, and we'll choose a resource again. Let's say we want all of these to happen from 8 to 10 a.m. and they're all worth 10 points. And if I go ahead and click continue to day and date, it essentially just moves me to the next tab. And I can set up a schedule for it if I like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a start date of December 1st tomorrow. And I'm going to say continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted. And that'll make more sense when we get to PLC here. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to PLC. And I can choose to have the same PLC for each copy. So I could essentially write something in here and choose how many copies I want to make, and it'll make a single copy or single assignment on every day for X number of days, this being 10 in this case. Or I can do what's called auto increments on the PLC. And this is where it gets pretty interesting, because I can essentially do a 1-part auto increment. Because if you think about the page lesson chapter, it's likely that you're not going to necessarily have the same one every day. The first assignment might be chapter 1, and then the second one might be chapter 2, and so on. And it would be really tiresome to essentially enter all that over and over again. So we have these tools here that allow you to automatically increment those numbers over time as you're creating these items. So I'll do a 1-part auto increment. And the leading text here, let's just call this, I will do lesson 1. And we'll start with lesson 1, and we'll end with lesson, let's do 4. And we'll increment by 1. And so if I click on this little sample link here, it'll show me a quick sample of what that looks like, lesson 1, 2, 3, 4. And so essentially what I'm saying is create assignments for Campbell in Ancient History 1, starting on December 1st, and go until this PLC pattern here is exhausted. So if we think about when this pattern would be exhausted, it would be after we get to lesson 4. So what we can do is we can go ahead and continue to preview. And what that will do is it'll just give you a preview of what we're creating. Hasn't actually created these yet, but it allows you to get a sense of, oh, okay, is what I'm creating what I want or not? And so we'll see here that it looks like we're creating 4 assignments starting on Tuesday, going through Friday, and it's starting with lesson 1 and going through lesson 4. So Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I think I messed up here, but it because it starts at 9 a.m. So what I can do if this isn't quite what I want, I can always click back up here on these tabs and make changes. So let me change this. Oh, that's funny. Should be 8 a.m. Let's return to preview. Hmm, not sure why it's doing that. I think I have my school day starting at 9 a.m. Okay, so let's go with 9 a.m. And so this is the preview here. And so I can select all of these items and then hit accept selected items, and they will go ahead and be added to the agenda. So there they go. Now I have 4 assignments added to the agenda. If I click on them, you'll see that this one's lesson 1, this one's lesson 2, lesson 3, and lesson 4. So that's another way to add items to the agenda. You can do more than one at a time. And again, this is what a lot of people do on a regular basis. So you could think, perhaps Sunday night, you create all of the assignments for the week ahead for all of your different courses and your different students and go through your week. And every night you could either mark them complete or at the end of the week, you could do that. So again, just another way that you could use these tools within your homeschool. Okay, so this is how we would create single and multiple assignments right here on the calendar view. Before we leave the calendar view, I just want to show you a few more things here. So you have calendar like options here where you can view things on a day, week, or month basis or jump straight to a specific date. These blue tabs here at the top, these are filters for your calendar. So right now I'm viewing all students of all types and completion status of all, subject course all. If I wanted to change this, just click on one and I could choose to view just specific students if I wanted. I could choose the types of items that I'm viewing. So, for example, if I only wanted to view assignments, I could do that, and that you'll see that attendance record goes away. I can turn those back on. For completion status, if I only wanted to view items that were incomplete or completed by student or teacher, etc., I could do that. And then I could filter also by different subjects and courses. So it allows you to really customize your display as your agenda starts to fill up with a lot of different items. Okay, so let's jump over to the agenda list view to see what our agenda looks like in that format. So keep in mind the calendar view and the list view, they're showing you the same information. It's just presented in a different way. And this is so that you can do different things in each different view. So the list view is really powerful because it'll show you all of your assignments in this kind of grid format. And it'll allow you to make changes to more than one at a time. So right now I am looking at a date range of just this week. So again, just like on the calendar view, you had all those different filters. Here on the list view, they're here on the left. So you've got, the date range, what students you're looking at, the types of items, completion status, etc. And then over here, you have all of the different items that would be displayed because of that. So you can see that this first assignment here, this is the one that we already marked complete. It has a grade of 90%. It's already marked teacher complete. And then these are those 4 other assignments that we created all at once. So let's say, for example, I wanted to edit all 4 of these because I made a mistake. So I can select all 4 items and I can choose action, multi-edit. And let's go ahead and let's change that time to 8 a.m. I'll just change that to 8 a.m. and hit save. And now all 4 of those assignments now are starting at 8 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. Similarly, if I wanted to mark them all complete at once or give them a grade all at once, I can select them all and choose action, multi-edit, and let's say she earned an 80% on all of those. I'll go ahead and save that, and now she has a grade, um, or I've excuse me, I've edited the grade so that it's 8 out of 10. I forgot to mark them complete while I was in there, but I can just select those again and choose action. And I can actually skip right here to mark as complete. That's a little shortcut right here. So I can just mark those complete all at once. And now all of those are graded, marked complete. And you'll also notice that it created attendance records for each one of those days right here because those items were all marked complete. So you can see how the list view allows you to manipulate the same data just in a different way. Other cool things about the list view is that you can sort and group items based off of these different columns. So right now, if I wanted to sort by date ascending, I can do that. If I want to do descending Just click it again, and it does that. You can actually sort by more than one column at a time. So let's say I wanted to do descending by date, but then ascending by PLC or something. You can certainly do that. You can tweak these as much as you want. Another cool thing about the grouping and sorting is that you can group by any one of these columns too. So let's say, for example, I wanted to group by type. I can simply grab this type column and just drag it up here to the top. And now my items are grouped by their type. So I have all my assignments in this group and all of my attendance records in this group. And these are collapsible if you like. So this is another cool way to just kind of sort and filter your data. Especially if you have multiple students, you could essentially group by student and see each student's items all together. And again, when you're grouped, you can then still sort. So I can group by type and then sort descending by date if I wanted. So lots of different options here in the agenda list view that you wouldn't necessarily get in the calendar view. Okay. Oh, additionally, one last thing is you can search here as well. So if I wanted to search for any specific text, I can search for lesson, and it'll just return the items that have lesson in the item like that. If I want to clear that search, I can just click on this green search filter here, and it goes back to normal. Okay, cool. So just to recap, we did a demo of creating single and multiple assignments. We added grades and marked those complete, and we did that using both the calendar view as well as the list view of the agenda. Okay, cool. So now let's talk about lesson plans. And lesson plans are a really popular feature within Homeschool Tracker. They're also, I would say, slightly more advanced. So, like we mentioned earlier, with those different workflows where you could just create single or multiple assignments at a time and kind of go about your day or your week, perfectly acceptable. Lesson plans kind of take that to the next level because essentially what lesson plans are there a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. So, if you remember, assignments are really those items that we created, and they're right there on the agenda. Lesson plans contain items that are not on the agenda yet, but they can then be scheduled to become assignments on the agenda. And so this is perfect if you want to plan out everything in detail all at once, or if, say, you have a predefined curriculum. So you can imagine if you are a really hardcore planner and you want to plan out your entire um, curriculum for a particular course ahead of time, you can create a lesson plan that has all of those items in order. And then as you go about your year, you can essentially schedule those items and have them be created as assignments. Or if you have a predefined curriculum, like let's say you bought some curriculum off the shelf from a provider, they might have a lesson plan already included with that curriculum that you could then essentially copy into Homeschool Tracker or import from our shared lesson plan library and follow that. The nice thing about lesson plans is they're not necessarily tied to a particular student, since they haven't been created as assignments yet. So that means they can be reused over and over again throughout your homeschooling career. So, for example, if you have a lesson plan for a freshman in biology, and let's say that student then moves on and your younger student is now taking that same course, you can use that exact same lesson plan for that younger student without having to copy that data again or re-enter a lot of things. So they can be really powerful for those reasons. And then lastly, lesson plans can be shared and imported using the shared lesson plan library. And this is great, especially if you are using off the shelf curriculum. There are a lot of shared lesson plans in there that are based off of that curriculum. In addition, if you're part of a group or a co op and you're sharing curriculum or perhaps you're going through a course together, this is another great way where you can essentially, one person in your group or your co op can create the lesson plan, share it, and everybody else can then use it. So let's go ahead and take a look at a demo of lesson plans. So what we'll do is we'll see an example lesson plan because I think it'll make a lot more sense once you see it. Then we'll create a very simple lesson plan. We'll import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library, and then we'll schedule a lesson plan and discuss how you can use presets for that. So let's jump back over here, and we will go to the lesson plan page from the schedules and planning section of the menu. And if this is your first time here, you'll see a pop-up like this, which explains a lot of what we just talked about. But right off the bat, you might notice that the lesson plan page looks a lot like the agenda list view. And you'll actually see this same paradigm throughout Homeschool Tracker, where you essentially have filters on the left, you have items in the middle, and you've got columns and that you can sort and group by. So try to, you'll see those same paradigms throughout the program. So if I want to load up an existing lesson plan, and keep in mind if you are brand new to Homeschool Tracker, you won't have any lesson plans just yet, but you can certainly create them, and we'll show you how to do that. But I'm just going to load up an existing one so you can see what they look like. I can choose a lesson plan name. And again, this is a smart entry field. So I'll just hit the space bar. And I'll choose this Abeka Arithmetic First Grade Plan. And you'll see that this looks a lot like assignments. But really, these aren't assignments yet because, as you remember, assignments need to have a student, a subject course, and a date. These items here have everything that an assignment does, except they don't have a date or a student yet. So they have a subject course, they have activity, resource, PLC, points possible, all of that. But instead of a date, they have a day number and an order field. Now, the day number corresponds to the sequence in which the lesson plan items should be consumed. So, for example, on day one of using this lesson plan, this is the item that should be referenced. On day two, it should be this one. Day three, this one, and so on and so forth. And so these days don't necessarily correspond to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They just correspond to whenever you decide to schedule the item. So let's say the first day of this lesson plan happened to be a Monday. It would pull this in and it would schedule that for that particular Monday. But let's say the next time you use this lesson plan is a week from now and it's a Tuesday, a week and a day. It would pull in day two and it would schedule it for that day. So the day numbers are really just the order in which they should be scheduled, and what day they should be scheduled. But really, the actual day or the date that the item is scheduled will be based on when you actually want to use it. So let me just open this up so you can see that it looks a lot like an assignment, except that it doesn't have the date or the student just yet. So let's see how this sequence works. So you have days 1 through 11 here. And let's see, it goes lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then on day 12, it looks like there's an oral test that's worth 100 points. And also on day 12, so these both have the same day number, there's another test, probably a written test, that's also worth 100 points. And then it goes back to lessons 13 through 16. And then on day 17, there's a test, two tests again, and so on and so forth. And so if I scroll all the way down, you'll see that this lesson plan goes for 171 days. So it's basically an entire school year. And there's actually 202 items within this lesson plan. So you could see how, let's say you are setting up your course, in this case, Arithmetic 1 or Arithmetic first grade. You can essentially create your entire year's worth of lessons all at once and then go ahead and start your year and schedule them as you go. So that's what a lesson plan looks like. And the nice thing is, like I said, that's not tied to a date or a student. So I can use this once for one student. And then when my next student is taking this particular course, I can use it again. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new lesson plan, just a real simple one. So what I'll do is I'll just go to add and I'll choose add multiple. And right away, you'll see that this looks a lot like that add multiple assignment wizard that we looked at earlier. It went ahead and it filled in the existing lesson plan that I was looking at because, a lot of times it's assuming that you want to just add to that existing lesson plan. But what I'll do is I'll just delete that and create a new one. So I'll call this sample plan. And we will choose a course. Let's do ancient history. And let's do some lessons. And we'll pick a book. And let's say each of these is worth 10 points. And then, okay, we'll continue to day numbers. So we'll start on 1 and we'll increment by 1. And then we'll continue to PLC. And so I want to do an auto increment for this. And we'll do lesson 1 ends with lesson 10. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating 10 lessons, lesson 1 through lesson 10. I will just mention, because I didn't mention this earlier, that you can do two-part and three-part auto increments also. So, for example, you could do a two-part auto increment that says like lesson 10 dash B, or you might see something that said like chapter one, chapter one, lesson two, chapter one, lesson three, and so on. And then it gets to chapter two, lesson one. You can do that sort of sequencing with two-part or three-part auto increments. And we go over a lot of that in the more advanced training session just on lesson plans. So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning more about that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to preview. And you'll see now that I have days 1 through 10, lessons 1 through 10. So that's what I was looking for. Whoops, excuse me. I'll go ahead and select all and choose accept selected items. Okay. And so when I get back here, it's actually still looking at the backup plan. Let me go ahead and load up my sample plan and click OK. There we go. So there are the items that I just created. Days 1 through 10, lesson 1 through 10. Now let's say I wanted to add a test on day 11. I could simply choose add single, and I can choose a course. I'll call this test. And let's say this is worth 100 points. And I'll just go ahead and hit save. And you'll notice that it jumped up here to the top because I actually forgot to put in the day number. So it's set for day 0 by default. So I'll change that. I can just change that to day 11 and hit save. So there you go. I have a simple 11-day lesson plan, 10 lessons in a row, and then a test on day 11. So that's a really quick way to show you how to create a lesson plan. Now, obviously, you can create all 180 days if you like, using this sort of sequencing. But I'd also definitely, again, recommend checking out that lesson plan training session if you're interested in creating more complex lesson plans, because we dive into a lot of strategies on how to create much more complicated lesson plans where you've got midterms and tests and final exams, excuse me, and then tests along the way, and then lessons that fill in, all with like different increments. There's a lot of ways that you can use these tools to create those really efficiently, so you don't have to necessarily create only 10 items at a time or something like that. So definitely check out that training session if you're really interested in lesson plans and creating them effectively. So this is my simple lesson plan. Let's say I wanted to share this on the shared lesson plan library. I could just select all these items and then choose action share. And I could give it a name and a description and then submit it to the shared lesson plan library. If you're going to do that, I would definitely recommend being very descriptive in both the name and the description. If you're taking a off-the-shelf curriculum and creating the lesson plan for it, definitely put all of that information in there so that folks know exactly what it is, and that way they can see if it will be useful for them. Okay, so let's jump back over here and show you how to import a lesson plan from the shared library. So I'll jump back here and go to the shared lesson plans link right here. So if this is your first time on this page, you can simply enter in a blank search here and just hit go. And it will load up all of the shared lesson plans in the library here. And you'll notice that there are literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of different lesson plans in here. And a lot of them are based off of, probably the majority of them are based off the shelf curriculum. So, there's a significant amount of lesson plans in here that people have taken the time to enter and share. I'm just going to go ahead and search in here for reading. And I'm going to grab this Usborne First Reading Level 1 lesson plan and take a look at it. So you can see here, this is a 15-day lesson plan, and it has different activities and resources. And let's say this is the one that I want. I can go ahead and click on Prepare for Import. And once it's ready here, I just need to give it a new lesson plan name for when it's in my account. So I'll just call it Reading 1. And then I can select all the items and accept them. But before I do that, I just want to give it another look. And I'm noticing that under subject course, it's under the subject of language arts, but it doesn't have a course associated with it. Now, I could import this and then modify that later using the multi-edit feature, or I can actually just change that right now So what I'll do is with all of them selected, I'll choose Action, Multi-Edit, click on Subject Course, and I'm going to choose Language Arts slash Reading 1. And if you remember, Reading 1 is that course that we created earlier. And I'll click Save. And so now that's updated. And okay, that looks great. So I'm also looking over here at Resource, and I see this asterisk and New in parentheses. And what that means is that this is a resource that's in this lesson plan that I don't already have in my library. So what it's going to do is it's going to create it for me. And that's why it's telling me that it's new. And that's just really just to let me know that that's going to be added to my resources and to my library when I import this plan, which is great, which is what I'm looking for. So with all of them selected, I'm going to choose Accept Selected Items. And there we go. Now I am in the lesson plan screen. This is my lesson plan reading 1, and here it is. These are the items that are now in my account. So that's just a quick way to show you how to import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library. Pretty simple. Okay, so let's jump back over here and see where we're at. Okay, so now we're going to schedule a lesson plan and discuss presets. Okay, so now that I have this lesson plan, let's say I want to use it. I want to actually schedule it for my students. The quickest way to do that is simply to select the items that you want to schedule. So let's say I want to schedule the first 5 days of this lesson plan. I can just select them and then choose Action Scheduler. And from the scheduler, again, I'm in a kind of a little wizard here. I can choose which students I want these to be scheduled for. I'm going to choose Campbell and continue to day and date. And I can choose a start date. Let's say I want these to happen starting today. And I can continue into an end date, or I can continue until all selected items in the lesson plan are used. I'm going to choose that option because I think I selected 5 of them, and I'll continue to preview. Okay, great. So there I have these 5 items, and they're now going to be scheduled on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I didn't select a start and end time. I could have. And if I don't select a start and end time, they'll simply show up as all day assignments, which means it's up to me and my student when we decide to complete them. That's fine for these. I'll just go ahead and hit select all and choose accept selected items. And that is done. So now if I jump over to the agenda, you'll see that up here at the top under the all day section, I have 5 assignments for reading 1. So this is that first one and the second one, third one, fourth one, and the fifth one. So again, you can see how using a lesson plan and the scheduler can make this process of creating essentially multiple assignments at once much faster. So if you've taken the time, perhaps during the summer, during a holiday break, and created lesson plans, now when you go ahead and use them, it's as simple as just loading them up, selecting a week or 2 at a time, and scheduling them, and then you're off and running. Now, that's scheduling, kind of what I would call basic scheduling. I also want to show you a more advanced scheduler. And so I'm going to jump over to the lesson plans and presets page here. And this page takes a little bit longer to load because it's loading in all of the available lesson plans that my student is currently using. So I'm looking at Campbell right now, and these are the active lesson plans that she's currently using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click edit here and add in that reading plan. Okay, so I'm going to select this reading 1 plan. Then I'm going to jump over to this presets button here. And so when I get to presets, you'll notice it looks a lot like the agenda calendar view. And what presets are, they're basically preset times throughout the week when I want specific courses to occur. And I can select then the preset option when I'm using any kind of scheduler so that the scheduler will essentially take those items in that specific course and place them in the appropriate time of the week when I have set these presets for. So you'll notice that I have chosen Ancient History 1 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, then spelling from 10 to 11, and then first grade math on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11 to 12, grammar on the other days, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and add a preset. And the presets are based off of subject course. So I'm going to choose reading one. And I want this to happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. I'll hit save. Okay, so there's my new preset for reading one, Monday through Friday, 3 to 4. So now if we go to the scheduler here, the nice thing about this scheduler is I can schedule multiple lesson plans all at once. So if you remember previously, um, I had to load up the lesson plan, select the items, and then run the scheduler. Let's say I wanted to schedule all of my plans for my student all at once. I could certainly do that right here. So here are all the lesson plans that she's currently using. And I'll go ahead and just keep them all selected. And I can continue to day and date. And so now here I can choose a schedule like we've done before, or I can use this preset option. So I'm going to keep that selected there. And then I'm going to choose a start date. So I'm going to choose next week. And I'll choose start on the 7th. And I will continue until the 11th. So I'm just going to schedule just next week. And this is an important thing to point out because a lot of folks, when they create lesson plans, they then want to go ahead and schedule their entire year all at once. And I would recommend not doing that, mainly because if you schedule the whole year at once and basically use up all of your lesson plan items and create assignments for the entire year, you start to limit yourself in terms of your ability to reschedule. Now, you can certainly reschedule those items and move them around, but it's much easier and much more manageable, in my opinion, to just schedule a week or two at a time because it allows you to remain flexible. If, for example, the lesson plan's not going the way you wanted, or your student is moving faster or slower for whatever reason, you can essentially speed up or slow down much easier if you're just scheduling a week or two at a time. So I'm just going to select next week, starting on the 7th, ending on the 11th, and I'll continue to preview. Okay, so here now you can see I have 44 items in preview, and it looks kind of crazy because there's different times and there's different plan items and subjects and courses. They're all being scheduled at once. So you can kind of see here that Ancient History 1, on this first item here, is being scheduled for Monday from 9 to 10, and then spelling from 10 to 11, then arithmetic from 11 to 12, physical science from 1 to 2, math from 2 to 3, reading 1, that's the course we just created, from 3 to 4. And then on Tuesday, it's doing whatever Tuesday had, and so on and so forth. So I can go ahead and select all and hit accept selected items. So if you think about what's happening here, it's taking all of those lesson plan items, which were not yet assignments, they're just lesson plan items, and it's scheduling them based off of the presets that we created for those particular course times, essentially. And it's turning all of those lesson plan items into real assignments by giving them a date, time, and assigning them to Campbell all at once. And it's doing that for 44 items here. So if I hit accept selected items, this will take a second to create all of those, but it will essentially add those 44 items to our agenda. Okay, great. And so if you think about workflow, actually, let's just go look at this for a second. I'll go to the agenda view. And remember, this was this current week. Let's jump to next week. And boom, there you go. You've got 44 assignments all ready to go for different courses, all at very specific times, all for Campbell, all scheduled within just a few clicks. So if you can imagine a workflow where you have created all of your lesson plans in advance, maybe not all of them, but maybe the core ones essentially. And perhaps every Sunday night you go into the lesson plan and presets page and you load them up and schedule them for your week ahead. You can essentially create all of this within just a few clicks. And then when it's time to grade them, you would just go through and add your grades and mark them complete at that time. So really powerful in terms of the amount of assignments and amount of work that you can get done in a short period of time. So that's how you use the lesson plans and presets and how you essentially schedule lesson plan items to become assignments. Okay, so real briefly on reports. So reports are created as PDFs that you can save, print, or send. And the daily task list is a great report that we use on a day to day basis. Um, and I'll show you how to use that real quick right here. So if I jump back to Homeschool Tracker and go to the reports into the daily task list, I can go ahead and create a daily task list. I'll choose Campbell for all subjects and courses. And I'll do it for that week that we just scheduled. So that was December 7th through the 11th. And I can group them by dates. I can include all of this different information if I like, or exclude things. But I'm going to go ahead and click Generate Report. And then once it's created, I'll pick up the report. And that essentially saves a PDF to my downloads folder, which I'll open for you here. Okay. And so this is that PDF of the daily task list. And so this is a great thing that if you still like to print things, you can certainly print this out. You could put it on a clipboard or post it up on a bulletin board. And it just shows Campbell and yourself all of the assignments that he or she has. And it includes this little checkbox if you want to, put a little check mark in there as you go. But it includes all the information that you would need to go about doing your work. And so that's a great workflow again, where you would schedule your whole week, print out the daily task list either for the whole week or for just that day, and then go to work and you guys are ready to go. So that's the daily task list. I'm not going to talk too much about transcripts and report cards just yet. We'll likely do a training session just on transcripts and report cards, probably closer to the end of the year, end of the calendar year, as well as the end of the school year, when those become much more relevant. But just know that you can create a report card or a transcript as long as you have one completed and graded assignment in a course. So if you think about a transcript and report card, it needs a grade in this case. And so in order for a course to have a grade, you need to have completed and graded assignments in that course. So once you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course, you can then generate a transcript or a report card that will reflect that for that specific course. Okay, so workflows, just to recap a little bit on the workflows that we talked about, it's perfectly normal. And actually, a lot of folks do this where you create and complete single assignments on a daily basis. And so you can do that by creating one assignment at a time or using the add multiple, and you can then essentially mark those complete at the end of the day. Or you can do things in reverse, like we were mentioning earlier, where at the end of the day, you can go back in and essentially add in all of the assignments or all the work that you completed for the day. And again, that's a great thing for unschoolers or folks that don't necessarily know what the day holds until it's over, and then you can essentially record all of the work that you did in that day. And then the more advanced workflow would be, using lesson plans. And you don't necessarily need to have a lesson plan for everything that you're doing, but maybe you have it for the core curriculum that you're using. And then you could schedule all of your students, 1 week or 2 weeks at a time, just using the lesson plan and presets scheduler. And that's a great way where, you can just jump in here, a few clicks, uh, schedule your entire week, print out the daily task list if you like, and you're off and running. And then at the end of the week, say on a Friday night or Saturday, come back in, mark the things complete that were completed, give them grades, do any rescheduling or anything that you might need, and then kind of set up your next week at that point. So lots of different options in terms of workflows, and certainly there's even more that folks are doing all the time. But again, it's really up to you to determine how you want to use these tools in your homeschool. Okay, Q&A. So we have time for questions. There were a few questions that came in ahead of time that I'll start with, and then, if you have any questions at all, feel free to submit those using that Q&A button right there in your viewer. Okay, so one question that came in ahead of time was, can you explain block, assuming blocks of time, and how it relates to the block field on the add assignment screen? Sure, we can definitely do that. So blocks are another way of organizing the agenda. So if you remember here on the agenda calendar view, Right now, we're organized essentially by time, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., etc. If you go to the program options over here and go to the agenda tab, you can choose to organize your agenda by start end times or by blocks. So I'll go ahead and switch over to blocks to show you what that looks like. And now if I go back to the agenda, you'll see all of my assignments just went into all day mode because I don't have blocks assigned to them. But essentially now, instead of times down here, you have blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., all the way up to 20, I believe. And so what that does is if you don't necessarily like to assign specific times to your assignments, you can essentially give them a block number. So if I go ahead into this assignment, let's just choose this ancient history one. I can give this the block number of 1 and choose save. So now you'll see that ancient history 1 assignment is in block 1. I can make this reading assignment in block 2. And I can just organize my day in blocks instead of time, essentially. And you can certainly have more than one item in the same block. And there you go. So it's really up to you, again, how you want to organize it. If you want to say, for example, okay, all of my reading or all my language arts, for example, happens in block 1, you could organize your assignments that way. And then we do math in block 2. You could do that way. And that way, you're not necessarily tied to a specific time, because I know how it is when you have times associated with something. You feel like you could be, kind of stuck to a clock. Obviously that's not the case, but if you don't necessarily want that constant reminder of either being ahead of or behind schedule, for example, you're more than welcome to organize things in blocks. And that's just one reason why you might want to use blocks. There's obviously, or certainly, plenty of other organizational reasons why you might want to use blocks as well. But that's essentially what the way blocks work. They work the same in lesson plans also. You can, or excuse me, not in lesson plans, but in the scheduler, you can choose which blocks you want to schedule things for versus a time. And so that's really the kind of the basics behind using blocks instead of start and end times. Okay, so another question that came in: anything about unschooling would be helpful. Um, so, what I mentioned before about workflows in terms of unschooling, if you're not necessarily a big planner, or you just see where the day takes you, essentially, I think using Homeschool Tracker as a record keeping tool and less of a planning tool is a great way to do that, because whether you're an unschooler or a more traditional homeschooler, it really doesn't matter. You still want to have great records of the work that you're doing, so that maybe you need to for your state, or you want to have a great transcript to submit to a university someday. Either way, you're going to want to keep track of those records. And so if you are not necessarily planning a lot, but you still want to record all of that information, just think of Homeschool Tracker as a way to go back in at the end of your day or at the end of your week and add in all of that information that you accomplished in that particular day or that time frame. There is also, I should mention, on the help site, there's actually a page here, Tips for Unschoolers, that goes into a lot of other details. Similar kind of concept to what I just described, but this might be helpful for you to reference as well. So again, that's on the help.homeschooltracker.com, and then look for the link for tips for unschoolers. Okay, next question that came in was, how can I create course descriptions for each course in Homeschool Tracker? You can certainly do that if you jump over to the courses list right here on the manage list section of the menu. And if you just double click on the course that you're looking for, under this notes section here, you can enter in pretty much anything you want here, and this will essentially be the course description or the course notes. So I could say this is ancient history, and click save. And then now if you were to generate a course list report, I believe you can essentially include the notes, or the notes will be included for that course list. There's other places where it can show up as well, but that's where you enter that in, is right there on the course list screen. Okay, so Nadine is asking, As a school administrator, would I be able to input my important reminders for the homeschool, such as when to order standardized tests, make arrangements for field trips, etc.? Um, so you certainly could do that. There isn't anything necessarily built in for like a reminder or anything like that. But what actually a lot of folks do, and again, this kind of goes back to kind of the open platform or open architecture of Homeschool Tracker, is a lot of users actually will create a student for themselves. So you could call it Nadine, for example, or you could call it teacher. And if you wanted to have reminders in there, just create an assignment or a chore for yourself, put it on the agenda, and that way you'll see it when it's coming up. Or if you need to be reminded 2 weeks in advance or something, just put it 2 weeks ahead of the date that you're looking for, and that way all of your items are essentially integrated into one agenda. So that's certainly a way to do that. Or obviously you could always use an external calendar program of some sort for that. But we don't necessarily have a built-in way to do that. But again, these are just tools, right? And so it's all about how you use the tools for your use, and it's really customizable in that regard. So I would definitely recommend, if you want to keep it within the same agenda as your students' tasks, go ahead and create a user or a student for yourself, and go ahead and just enter information right there on the agenda notes to yourself, so that you can keep track of the things that you need to be working on as well. Okay. So Shelly is asking, how does Homeschool Tracker track the student's time spent on an assignment? That's a great question. So I'll show you that here. Actually, I need to switch back to time spent to show you that. So I'm going to choose back to start end times here. Actually, I don't have to switch back to that. Just to clarify, you can actually continue to track time spent in the blocks format. It was just a little bit easier for me to show you if I'm using start and end times. So here's this assignment for Ancient History 1. And using the start and end time here, 9 to 10, it automatically calculated 1 hour for time spent based off of that start and end time. If I was using blocks, or if I didn't have a start and end time in here, I could just specify that amount by just typing it in. And so when I mark that complete, it essentially records 1 hour of time spent for Ancient History 1. And over the course of an entire semester or quarter, whatever, you can imagine that all of that time spent would then be added up together to generate a report. So if I then wanted to generate a time spent report right here, I could choose a date range. So I know, for example, in a lot of states, maybe not a lot of states, but in some states, you have to submit monthly reports of time spent in specific courses. This is where you would do that. So let's say I was submitting my October report. I could select, October 1st to 31st and generate that report. And it would essentially grab all of those time spent and add them up and then put it into a report for you. Um, so hopefully that answers your question, Shelly. But that's essentially how it's calculating that, is based off of that time spent field within the assignment. Additionally, attendance reports can also kind of do something similarly. So in the program options under attendance, there's a few different options here in terms of time entry for attendance. So you can choose to, and sorry, I have to kind of remember as I'm doing this, but let me go ahead and look at this attendance record here. So you can choose if you're present for a full day or half day. And so depending on what you're using the report for, an attendance report might work for your purposes. But if you need the granularity of showing time spent on a specific course, which I think is likely of what you might need, then you'll need to use that time spent report that kind of breaks it down by each course and how much time was spent in each specific course. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. If there are any other questions out there, feel free to go ahead and submit those. While I'm waiting to see if there's any other questions, one thing that does come up a lot is rescheduling, and I'll go ahead and cover that real quick if you guys want to hang on there. So obviously things happen, right? And for example, we just had Thanksgiving weekend here. Let's say your family came in early on Wednesday or Tuesday, and you had planned on having school, but things change, and so we need to reschedule things. Happens all the time. No problem. The quickest and easiest way to reschedule something is right from the calendar view. You can simply grab something and just move it just like that. You can even change the duration if you like. So I can just move that from Monday to Tuesday if I wanted. But obviously, that becomes a bit cumbersome if you wanted to move an entire day or an entire week at a time. So if you needed to do that, you'd want to jump over to the agenda list view. And so let's go ahead and look at that week that has all those assignments, the 44 assignments that we created. And let's say, for example, Campbell was sick on Monday. And so she skipped school, or she was sick essentially. And what we want to do is we want to move everything forward a day so that we don't lose out on anything and we don't fall behind. And essentially, we'll just push everything forward. So if I want to just push everything forward, I can simply select all and choose Action, Reschedule. And what I'll do is I'll essentially just change the start date. So originally, everything was starting on the 7th, and I'll just choose the 8th. And I'll continue until all items are moved and hit Continue to Preview. And so now you'll see all of those items with the existing date and the new date. So Monday's items are being moved to Tuesday. Tuesday's items are moving to Wednesday, etc. So I can hit Select All and choose Accept Selected Items. And now, if I jump back to the calendar view, it's a little easier to see there. You'll notice that Monday is now clear because she was sick and everything got moved forward a day. And if I actually jump to the following week, you'll see that it now rolls over to Monday. And so, again, this is another reason why I definitely recommend folks only schedule a week or two at a time. Because you can imagine if you had scheduled the entire year and you wanted to push everything forward one day, you certainly could do that. Homeschool Tracker will absolutely do that for you. You could select your, you know, 10,000 items and move them forward one day. Not a problem. But it certainly seems like a bit cumbersome, right? Whereas if you are only scheduling a week or two at a time, moving things forward a day or two is not a big deal at all. So um, that's how you would essentially move an entire block of items forward by a day. Now, let's say she was also sick on Tuesday, but I don't want to keep missing out on days of school. So what we're going to do is we're essentially going to double up her work on Wednesday, so that we get caught up. So let's go back to the list view, and let's select just Tuesday's items. So that's let's see. We'll just select just items on the 8th here, and we'll choose Action Reschedule, and we will move those to the 9th and hit Continue to Preview. And so now you'll see existing date Tuesday, new date Wednesday. And then down here in green, you see these are existing items on Wednesday. And it's basically showing you those because essentially there's a conflict, right? You're doubling up on Wednesday, and that's basically what we want to do. So I'm going to hit Select All and choose Accept Selected Items. And now if I jump back to the calendar so it's easier to see, you'll see that Wednesday now, she has a lot of work to do to get caught up. But now, we still end essentially on Monday. We're not losing yet another day. So that's basic rescheduling in a nutshell. Simply how to move an entire block of items, in this case, a week, forward one day. You could obviously move it forward 2 days or an entire week, however you want. And also how you would essentially move one day's items forward a day. And those are probably the two most common things that come up when you're rescheduling. Okay, so any other questions? Feel free to go ahead and submit those. If there are no other questions, I'll just go ahead and again let you know that we are recording this, and so at the end of the webinar, once the recording is ready, I'll send each of you an email with a link to that recording. But we'll also send you a link to a survey because we really want to know what you thought of this training session. Was it helpful? What you'd like to see in future training sessions. For example, we did that one on lesson plans that a lot of folks really enjoyed. We'd love to do more specific training sessions on other items, but really want to hear from you and what might be helpful for you. But it looks like there are no other questions. And again, if you do have any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to email us support@homeschooltracker.com. We're more than happy to answer any and all the questions you have. And with that, thank you guys so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. Again, we hope to see you soon. Florence, I just got your message. Thank you. This was very helpful. Great. I'm so glad that you found it helpful. And again, thank you to all of you for signing in tonight, for learning more about Homeschool Tracker. And again, feel free to email us with any questions you may have. Have a great night, and hope to talk to you again soon. Take care.